right now, the perception of Gachagua being ousted when Raila has joined Ruto does not sit well. Perception.
With who?
With Mountain.
Is an unknown. Because what the courts cannot do is that they cannot stop Parliament from proceeding to do another impeachment, starting it afresh. If this one is considered null and void, Parliament can just restart it afresh. So this will buy them time.
Because if you remember, right before the Gen Z demonstrations, Gachagua was very bullish on everything he said, everything he did. Even
Yes.
He was so, and then they was getting to a point whereby they were not even going to the same places together. Gachagua was actually going to, he was so bullish to a point that he was going to Rift Valley and lecturing MPs in Rift Valley, in their homestead, in their backyard, right? And that is where that undermining the president comes in. And for me, and I still believe that the Gen Z protest made people make moves earlier than they wanted to make.
Drama. It's kind of like Kenya is never short of any drama.
Kuna Puki Manjaro.
Kabisa. Now, we know it's been another week of political pandemonium in Kenya, as Parliament overwhelmingly approved a motion to impeach Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Now, with over 80% of parliamentarians approving the motion, the question on whether Parliament has been captured by the executive comes back to focus. You will recall that a little over 3 months ago, after the Gen Z uprising, opposition leader Raila Odinga joined forces with President William Ruto in a new broad-based coalition. Now, this new partnership has offered government a supermajority in both houses as Kenyans wait to know the fate of the deputy president in next week's Senate trial. Now, DP Gachagua is mounting a strong fight in court with a legal team led by veteran lawyer Paul Mwite. And tonight, we'll be diving deep on the issue of the removal of DP Gachagua from office. What political ramifications might this lead to going forward? We want to hear your thoughts in the comment section and on our phone lines. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. And then I also want to take this opportunity to introduce the panel, starting with Mika Och, who's live on Zoom. Now, to get us started, Mika, maybe as you get warmed up to tell us about your week, I will start you on a high note on telling us, do you think Deputy President Gachagua can be saved from the butcher's knife by the courts? Mika Och, twende kazi.
Thank you, Ali, and I want to say hi to everybody. I want to say hi you, the panelists. Thank you for being here kila weekend. I want to say thank you to our wapendwa wachangiaji for joining us. And to answer you, I will say no. And the reason I'll say no, Ali, is I'll take it back to 2022. I'll take it back to 2022 during the elections. And how we saw the election petition was handled and how that case was thrown out. And there was a precedent that was set. That was a judiciary that was hell-bent on revenge for Uhuru Kenyatta denying them the money that they wanted. And this guy promised them money. He gave them their money. But another thing, and he reinstated judges that Uhuru had refused to reinstate. And with that, he put himself in favor with the judiciary. Now, we've seen that everything that has gone to court against this government has never failed. They will fail on the lower courts, get to the Court of Appeal, and they will get the result reversed for them. We've also seen that the valiant abuse of the court process by government officials, which have gone scot-free. We had a deputy of the police the second in command of the police, defying court orders, was sentenced to jail, went to court, was defended by the Chief Justice, and got a slap on the wrist and was let go. So, by the virtue of how this impeachment started out, this impeachment is one of the most funniest impeachments I've ever seen, because it started on social media. People like Sudi tweeting and saying, in 14 days, you're going to see, we're impeaching you. And it was one that was very loud, and nobody was hiding what was coming. Gachagua knew what was coming. It was put on social media. It went to parliament. It was passed in parliament. And for the first time, we saw a full parliament. Only Babu was not there. And the other Sikh, no, Babu didn't, yeah, Babu was not there, and the other Sikh politician, the one who they ban in supermarkets all the time, was not there. We saw a full parliament. For the first time, that house was full. And guess what? Majority of that house voted to impeach this guy, which shows that this is something that was designed and orchestrated, that he must go. He's not going to fare any better in Senate. He's going to have his day in court in Senate. I don't see him beating Senate, especially that Senate whereby we usually have some very serious discussion, but then government policy sails through. So I don't see how this one is failing. We're going to have some very serious discussions, some very serious oppositions. We'll be happy by some politicians thinking that those senators are fighting, but when it comes to voting, they will vote the impeachment, and guess what? He'll get his day in front of the Chief Justice. And I believe this will be the shortest appeal we'll ever see in the history of Kenya.
Okay. Some very solid deliberations, very direct from none other than Mika Och. We're gonna come to Uno Mike, but before we go to Uno Mike, let's start with DJ Omosh Fire. Before we get to DJ Omosh Fire, there's a couple of comments that are already coming in, in light to what Mika is saying. Mika, of course, is insisting that DP Gachagua has no shot. He has no chance whatsoever. Gerald Oliech is saying the lynching of the deputy president is very hypocritical and unfair. All, if not most, of the parliamentarians should be given the same scrutiny, and few will pass. I can see also so many people have already joined in on Facebook. I can see Pukimanjaro anasema Amsterdam Tupo. Thank you so much for tuning in. Pukimanjaro, tell us what you think will happen this coming week. Mika is already saying that DP Gachagua has no shot. Yuko ndani ya kichinjio. There is no way out. He's going to get butchered when he goes for the Senate trial next week. And then I have Wairimu N. Wairimu N anasema sasa mimi nangoja huo mziki wa kukata kiuno. Niko karibu na bahari la Pacific. So that's a message to DJ Omosh Fire. And and as we come to your message, DJ Omosh Fire, you'll answer Wairimu. Before we get on to the legal strategy, which I want Uno Mike to talk about a bit, because lawyer Paul Mwite is mounting a very strong legal defense. What do you think are going to be the political ramifications? How will the impeachment trial affect the landscape? Let's say it happens next week and DP Gachagua gets removed from office. What are the power dynamics after that? What do you think will shift? DJ Omosh Fire.
So, based upon history, or at least the way things have been working, we've always had at least Mtu wa Mlima Kenya in power.
Okay.
For either the first or the second. There's always Mtu wa Mlima Kenya.
There was a mini break during the end of Moi's regime when he gave the vice presidency to Musalia Mudavadi.
Okay.
There was a mini break.
Okay, if we want to count that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say...
But basically, the president and vice president, for the most part of the 60-something years...
We've always had somebody...
There's always been someone from Lima.
There's always been somebody from Lima.
Yeah.
And in this case, there's a possibility that we may not have somebody from Lima.
Okay, and what makes you say that?
And just based upon how the dynamics of things have been happening, where there was that active campaign by the current deputy president to start bringing Mlima Kenya back. He kept singing this Mlima song, almost like he had been told, boss, I'm about to axe you. I'm removing you from being, sitting in here. In fact, you're no longer sleeping in the bed. We are done. And I'm not giving you papers. This thing is getting annulled. Which is basically what's happening. So he started doing his PR stance or to working his PR thing. But that didn't sell. It didn't work. In the court of public opinion, it may look like that it was working, but the people who were making the decisions, aka the politicians, it's definitely not working.
Now, there was a clip that was going around of former Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho, who's now the Minister for Mining,
Correct.
in an old campaign clip where he talked about this exactly, that President Ruto was planning to get into power with Gachagua and then impeach him. This was something that was verbalized in a political rally. Do you think it's just a lucky coincidence, or is there something that people in the political class know that most of us don't?
These guys, the interesting part about it is when they fight, we on the outside look on and we look at things and we say, okay, there's no way. These guys don't like each other, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's politics.
Okay, so it's like a sport.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like boxing. We go box,
yes.
And then after that,
we can even go sit down and drink tea together.
Okay.
As long as you guys, our shabbiks, don't see us, then we are good. And because that's gonna mess up for our round 2.
Okay.
Or should I say Euro 2? That's it's gonna mess it up for us. So these guys, a guy like Joho has been a student of the one and only Baba, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And at some point, Ruto was also a student of Baba, and walking along with Baba, even though he was in the school of MO1, right? So when you sit down and you look at all of these things, and based upon the politics and politics of Kenya and how things happen, Joho saw it coming. He's like, this is just a means, it's a means to an end. He knows where he wants to go. Once he gets to his cannon, then he's going to drop this guy. And that's exactly what he did.
Wow.
And right now he's silent. The worst part of all of this is we are sitting here, we're speculating, and we're talking about the impeachment, blah, blah, blah. This guy has not talked.
Silent. Nil by mouth.
Worse than a cricket.
Yeah.
And it is so sad to think, the worst part about it now for me is the next person coming in. Do you even have a shot? You don't have a shot at anything, and if you do something that is going to be counterproductive, then you know exactly which way you're going to go.
So this is a loud message to
Correct.
anyone who's going to come and sit on that seat.
And
next.
not only for this presidency, but for other presidencies coming up. Because guess what? I have this card that I can use, and I'm using it.
So he's giving a playbook.
Correct. And yet it was never used on him.
Interesting.
It was not used on him, and it's not that UK
Can you
did
say
not use
it was not used on him because Uhuru didn't have the number? So that is why Uhuru read very quick to do that handshake, to prevent actually this move being pulled on him.
I mean, Mika, I would say that, but at some point there's numbers. There's also, what is it that's giving you the numbers? Is it an envelope that's coming with the numbers, or is it the numbers based upon membership / affiliation? So some of these numbers are artificial numbers, and the artificiality of it is based upon the heaviness of the envelope.
Wow.
Which is true. I don't argue that. But isn't that what everybody in that August house is in there for? Self-entitled, self-enrichment. So it makes it even easier for them to lobby numbers if they want such things to happen. And I think one of the reasons why, you said that, I think if we go back to where Joho said this clip, it clearly shows that. Even I remember we were discussing it in the groups, and we were discussing who Ruto is going to, when Baba picked Martha, we started discussing who we were going to see. And all of us were on Kindiki. Everybody was on Kindiki. And then when it came to Gachagua, the rumors came to the choice between Gachagua and Kindiki. Everybody was still saying it's going to be Kindiki. And so when it was Gachagua, the first impression was that this guy has bought this ticket, right? And even if you say that this guy has bought this ticket, the moment Gachagua was sworn in, he was given a certain he's the way he started just talking and started spewing, saying things. You remember the word was that this guy Ruto is doing to this guy what Uhuru did to Ruto, giving him rope to hang himself. And I think Gachagua is just a means to get to the end, because there was that fear that if it was Kindiki who's not Kikuyu, will Kikuyus vote for him, or will Kikuyus go vote for, be more attracted to Uhuru and Martha combination? So for me, I feel that is what Rigathi was. And now that he is there, the guy has bought all the other politicians. He has them either by money or he has them by other means, but all of them are singing his tune.
Okay.
So it was just a matter of him consolidating the power, then him consolidating power working with ODM. And he's put himself in a place whereby, and that was a warning to anybody, whoever tries anything, to understand that I run this town.
Okay.
I'm the sheriff.
Sawa sawa. Now, we have a comment here that's coming from Gerald Oliech, and he says, guys, why are we not pouring water on the fact that the union of Ruto and Raila has precipitated the ousting of the DP? And I also want to welcome Luis Muya and Joki Marianne. Please type in and let us know what you think up on Facebook. Now, going back on YouTube, Pukimanjaro saying, it's Raila. Sorry. Raila got numbers in parliament. He will control a lot. He got Ruto real good. And then his father says Gladys Wanga or Madividi will be VP. And then Wairimu says, why is it more difficult to impeach? Why is it more difficult to impeach a governor? Mwangaza was given a court reprieve. Governor Wambora, the same. I think you're asking why is it more difficult to impeach a deputy president. And I think this is an issue that we are going to tackle, the differences between impeaching a governor and impeaching a deputy president. But before we get to
president.
that, and the president, but before we get to that, I want to go to Uno Mike.
Yes, sir.
We just want to go to maybe the legal defense strategy that's being mounted by Gachagua's legal team. We know that it's being led by a very able Paul Muite, former Kikuyu member of parliament, former Kabete member of parliament, and a veteran politician. Maybe
And a very good lawyer.
Yeah, very good lawyer too. Maybe just highlight to us maybe some of Gachagua's legal team defense strategy. What are they going to be saying? You know, like Mika feels very strongly that it doesn't matter what they do. Even Professor Makau Mutua, Ali, I think it was today or yesterday, I can't remember, he told Muite to stop misleading the deputy president. This is a done deal. But what is it that they have? What joker do they have that maybe people are not seeing?
Wapenzi wachangiaji, karibuni sana. So let me first start by saying, to chime in on what Gerald was alluding to. Right now, the perception of Gachagua being ousted when Raila has joined Ruto does not sit well. Perception.
With who?
With Mountain. Many names have been thrown, and I think we discussed this last week. In terms of, the possible whatever guys have thrown replacements. They're talking about Kindiki. There's also a chance, Madividi. Some quarters are saying Raila. So we shall see.
Chance.
Yeah.
No, we shall see. But coming to the legal strategy, there was, there's this guy, Lawrence Mugambi, was being quoted. Over here I have Julian's Amboko on Twitter. Actually referred this particular case to the Chief Justice.
Okay, so Lawrence
Mugambi is a judge.
Okay.
In the appeals court.
In the High Court.
In the High Court.
Okay.
In the High Court.
And you see, this went straight to the Supreme Court.
He said, boss.
He did not even go to court.
No,
of appeal.
he said he kicked it all the way up.
Yeah.
And the caveat over here, and I'll read it. He says here, and he quotes it over here. He says, there was also the question of whether the allegations subject to an impeachment should be circulated to the public with or without the response of the person being impeached, and if the absence of the availing the response compromises the public participation outcome and prejudices the person subject the person subject of the impeachment process by infringing his rights to fair administration and the right to a fair hearing under Articles 47 and 50 of the Constitution. These are substantial questions arising out of the instant impeachment.
That is very, very
Think about
interesting.
that.
Because that particular part,
yes,
a lot of the arguments on the charges, people are saying, like the charges, the 11 of them. So the legal team might beat some of them. They will not be able to beat all the 11 of them. But this particular one is a joker, because if let's say, for example, like the Supreme Court decides to take this into consideration, it means whatever charges came after that, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
So it nullifies all the 11 charges. So if we get an activist ruling where they side with Gachagua's defense team, which I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm just saying if we get that ruling, this will negate everything else that came after that.
Now, Mika, here's another thing. Because this is public participation. So ideally, presentations, these things have been leaked. They were not leaked.
They were actually given to the public.
They were given to the public.
Yes.
So now there's also the question of, so he says over here, there's a question as to whether Standing Order 65, the procedure of removal of the deputy president from office, provides ample room for meaningful public participation in the impeachment process. Quote, the limited duration of 7 days to carry out the entire process was cited as having an inhibiting effect on carrying out adequate and meaningful public participation. The failure by the standing orders to integrate or provide for any mechanism for public participation and or framework to credibly authenticate the outcome of public participation process were some of the issues that the petitioners raised as requiring serious circumspection, considering the fundamental position public participation occupies in providing continuous legitimacy to the actions of those charged with the exercise of delegated sovereign authority under the Constitution.
Okay, I know Mika has something that he wants to say, but to me,
mine was just a question.
Yeah,
that I think, Ali, you will be the best person to answer this. So that happens. They say they make a decision, that a ruling that there was not enough public participation. What does it do? Does it only just delay the inevitable, or does it stop the impeachment from happening completely?
So that is an unknown, because what the courts cannot do is that they cannot stop Parliament from proceeding to do another impeachment, starting it afresh. If this one is considered null and void, Parliament can just restart it afresh. So this will buy them time to do it again. So now this second one also brings, I'm interested to see what they'll determine is a reasonable timing for public participation on impeachment of a deputy president, because we've never had public participation on the impeachment of a deputy president. Now, this might also go, like reverse gear. Remember, there are also current sitting governors who've been impeached and convicted by the Senate, but are in office courtesy of a court order.
Yes.
There are some who've already been impeached, Ferdinand Waititu and Mike Mbuvi Sonko.
Yes.
So now, if this is now reversed and looked in retrospect in terms of how much time was there public participation on the impeachment of these governors. How much time was that given? How much of this the jurisprudence that comes out of this ruling will also be applicable to those of governors as reasonable timing? Because these are things that have not been written in law. So one positive thing that we are getting out of all this, despite the fact that this impeachment is distracting other important issues, is that there's forceful civic education that is happening.
And also remember when Gachagua was defending, when he had the presser, he said, I am taking my case, or this case has to be taken to the people that elected me.
Yes.
The 7.2 million. I am taking my case to them.
Yeah, he took it to the court of public opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the strategy that he had at the point, it worked, because you started seeing, like people now softening towards his plight. Now, not forgetting to answer Mika's question on, does this court process now, will it just delay the inevitable, or can it stop it and reverse it? I don't think the court process can completely stop it and say Governor Gachagua can never be impeached again. But I think what they can is say that this current one, based on that public participation,
the procedure,
defense,
the
process and the procedure.
Yes.
Because this will negate all the 11. Because part of the strategy of bringing 11 charges was that a defense will come, they'll try to defend them, they can defend a couple, they'll not be able to defend 11. But now, with Mwite being a very experienced defender, he went for a strategy whereby he picked up on the process, whereby if it sails through, it will block all the 11 charges.
Because remember, okay, Mika, go ahead. No, Mika, go ahead.
I think my question for me is this, because I guess yes, the judge will say that he wants to take it to a 3, and I believe that was an easy way out for him. This was an easy way out of somebody not wanting to take responsibility and pushing the ball down the field. Because the thing is, how can it's up to Gachagua's defense to prove that time was not enough, because the government has proved that it was enough for them to collect all those signatures or to have enough public participation, because they held it. Was it for how many days did they do the public?
It was, I think, 2 days.
Was it 2 days?
Yeah. 2 days, yeah.
They did it 2 days. They did it in every constituency. They did it at constituency level. They invited the public to come in places where the places where people didn't go. The people chased away the MPs. But at the end of the day, even if they say that there was, people are saying kufa dereva kufa makanga, people didn't say makanga si kufe dereva ndo akufe peke. So the I don't see them getting away with it. For me, I just feel it was a way of whereby a judge pushed the ball down the road, and with how where will the 3 judges that will be appointed by the CJ be able to refer before on how? Because if they refer by example on what's happening to the country and all the other impeachments, they've had less time for public participations, and the impeachments have stood. So it is a good defense, that I don't see how the defense can prove beyond reasonable doubt that time was not enough.
Okay, now that's now, like the government. You mentioned that the government has proved. The government hasn't proved anything, because this case hasn't gone to court. It's the court to determine whether, whether those two, regardless of whether they're able to go to all the constituencies and get the signatures, the court is the one that will determine. Because if you see the way that defense was worded, they characterized the impeachment of a deputy president as a weighty issue. Like it's a weighty national issue. So now these are the things that will now bring jurisprudence to determine what is reasonable. I
was gonna say, Bandio mentioned something. I wish he was here so that he can say it. I think another issue was the way it was conducted, in that you first discuss the charges, you first, ideally you say what you're going to say, then you bring a guy in, okay, defend yourself. Instead of the guy coming in, these are the charges, what do you, these are whatever, okay, let us counter, to at least give even the parliament or the members there, the guys who had signed, who had put their signatures on, a chance to listen.
Yeah, those two.
So it's like
those two charges.
This is like they're putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, those two charges are existential. It's a defense strategy, kama ya Gabriel na Saliba, if I use a soccer analysis, whereby it's kind of like if this defense line works, it doesn't even matter if the other ones work or don't. To me, I think these are the two strongest ones. Of course, you're going to read us the other ones that Julian Samboko summarized there. And Apa Kenyan is complaining and Asema, kwani guys, you guys don't believe no child is left behind. Can you explain the impeachment process from A to Z? I feel like I walked into a class halfway through the semester. So in simplicity, Kenyan with impeachment of a deputy president, it's a member of parliament files a motion in parliament to impeach the deputy president. They present the charges. Then the deputy president is given a chance to come and defend themselves.
No. When you do the charges, there has to be enough number of signatures.
There has to be a certain number of signatures for the motion
to proceed.
So that
for
debate.
Yeah, for debate.
So that the DP can come in.
Is it 2/3 of the House?
No. That's not two.
That
two-thirds.
is Senate.
2/3 is now, like parliament voting, now saying that it can go to Senate for trial.
Yes.
So for the motion to pass, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's a much lower threshold. It's a lower threshold. So now it just says that this can proceed in parliament.
Yes.
So once it proceeds in parliament, and then the DP gets a chance to defend himself.
Yes.
People vote, and then now it's taken to the Senate. Now
if it
that's
passes
where it's
the
going
motion,
next week.
it goes to the Senate.
It goes next week. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the Senate, that's where it's gonna be next week, and then of course the procedures and processes are being challenged here. Other comments also coming from Kenyan Jewish says, Mike, I'm having sensory overload from all the reading. Can you give us the Reader's Digest version? It's been a long week. And then Hapa Njoki Meriani saying she's listening keenly, and Gerald Oliech Father says this issue doesn't need to be looked at academically fully. Would this impeachment have taken momentum without the union of Ruto and Raila? The unprecedented numbers in parliament was the majority of which are parties. So I agree with Gerald to a certain extent. I don't think without this union that this impeachment would have been
it wouldn't have happened.
It would have happened.
I personally feel, and this is now going to the realm of speculation because Kenyan Jew is tuned in and is gonna fact check us. This is the realm of speculation. I think this was a joker that the union with Raila was, let me not say a joker, let me call it an A. An A stops, kama ulikuwa game imeenda around, you're being made to pick 12 cards.
Potato.
Yeah. Now ukona A, you can stop it.
Yes.
So I think the union between Raila and Ruto was an A that was thrown out too early because of the crisis that happened.
Because of the Gen Z movement.
Yeah, I think Ruto always had that A. He always had that S, but he didn't perceive himself using it this early. But he was forced to use it. Now, besides the S, he also had a joker. And the joker was impeachment. Yeah, and all this was supposed to come towards the end. But because of what's happening,
the first quarter,
he's been forced to pull them out quick. So he now has to re-strategize or hope the new cards that he's gonna get will work for the next 3 years. So that's just my speculation. That's just my thinking.
So
I think he always, in his mind, he always wanted to get rid of this guy.
In my opinion, how I see it is this.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, right before the Gen Z demonstrations, Gachagua was very bullish. On everything he said, everything he did,
yes.
he was so, and then they was getting to a point whereby they were not even going to the same places together. Gachagua was actually going to he was so bullish to a point that he was going to Rift Valley and lecturing MPs in Rift Valley, in their homestead, in their backyard, right? And that is where that undermining the president comes in. And for me, and I still believe that the Gen Z protest made people make moves earlier than they wanted to make. And in between the Gen Z protests when they were starting, I think Gachagua saw his chance and tried to make a move. And that is why this guy went and negotiated with Baba. Because you remember, even before Baba joined in, Ali was among the first people to start saying, there's a coup. There's a coup. The deputy is trying to throw to take over from the president, trying to throw the president of the party. He's trying to cause a coup using the protest. And then the next thing, that's what came out. I don't know if you guys have heard the interview that Baba did. Was it today, early on today, where he said that when he was asked why did he make this decision to do this, and they said for him, where the country was going, he couldn't let it go that way. Like he talked in his regular parable ways, like because the guy also asked him about the impeachment, and for his answer was like, if I hadn't done what I had, we wouldn't be having a country right now. And that is why I did what I did. So for me, I think both of them, the Gen Z demonstrations, made them put their cards on the table. But Mbaya, the inexperienced one, is the one who put his cards first and forgot that the one who is fighting has danced this dance before and might have mastered a few steps to be ahead of him in that symphony.
So Mika unasema Gachagua also had a joker, but he pulled it out too early.
Alicheza
mapema. And then ikamrudia.
Na Ruto akamkaunta na Raila, and that's the reason why the moment because you remember the moment Ruto secured Raila, what did Ruto do? He returned all his guys in government, right? He gave concessions to the protesters kidogo, hata kama si mingi, but he gave some concessions. And he went quiet.
Wow, this is quite interesting here. Naona hapa comments imechacha hapa, kuna comments zilikuwa zinakuja hapa on YouTube. And Wairimu says that the 2010 constitution was meant to secure the DP position a little better than it had been in the past. Ruto is basically upending an election without going to the ballot. And then Wairimu further says, also remember, Parliament is not held to beyond reasonable doubt. We were treated to a circus of innuendo and personal vendetta. The court standard is higher. And then Wairimu further says, Ali, those were not charges, they were allegations. DP has not been charged of anything yet by the DCI. Okay, that's interesting. And then Wairimu says, for some fun reading, look up the resignation of Spiro Agnew. He was Nixon's first VP, called him the bagman for his corruption. FBI did due diligence, which forced him to resign. So I think, the impeachment of Richard Nixon, because he resigned before he got removed from office.
Watergate.
Yeah, Watergate scandal. So that's some very interesting reading.
Yes.
As we sometimes get a lot of our precedent from American politics. And then going back to Facebook, Kenyan Jui here. Hey, so Kenyan Jui is
Kenyan Jui wants. Yeah. So what happens? I think. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Kenyan Jui is asking. You did a good job breaking it down. What happens after the Senate? Take us to the end of this process, to the point where he is let go, or is the Senate the final adjudicator of guilt and termination of office? And I think you can talk a little bit about that.
So usually, the Senate is usually from what we've seen before,
it's a final adjudicator.
It's a final adjudicator. Yeah. Like, when you look at Sonko, when you look at Waititu,
yeah,
because even with Sonko and Mwangaza, but even with Sonko went all the way to the East African Court of Justice.
Yeah,
of course, akanyongewa. But if you remember, there's a time Martha Koome said that I don't know what on Spice she said, you know what, if you've been, you know, kama mambo yako imeanguka, it's a wrap. That's what she said. So ideally what's going to happen, I think, again, this is the impeachment of a deputy president. So what's going to happen is we're going to wait Senate, and then probably because right now, as you have seen, there has been an open door where High Court Judge Mugambi has kicked it up to
the Supreme Court.
Straight.
Yeah.
Not even Court of Appeal.
Yoni kama golia anapatia striker.
Pale.
Yeah.
Anapatia Kai Havertz.
Yeah.
Enda kafunge
hiyo bao.
Tuone.
Raya.
So we are yet to see.
Yeah.
You know, it's not.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Yes.
So, if the Supreme Court shuts it down, he can't appeal. Isn't that a South African court?
No, it's done.
I know it's done.
No, if the Supreme Court, you know, like if the Supreme Court shuts it down, rules against the defense, it's over. It's a done deal.
Because even
so basically, nyie muoni hapo ndo ni kama ameenda kuzimwa proper.
So now you see with Come's courts, justifiably so, Mika, Come's courts have been exercising judicial restraint. By judicial restraint, you would have been nice if Pablo was here, could explain these legal terms. Judicial restraint is when the apex court tries as much as possible not to upset established order.
Yes.
You know, like the Senate is the final ruler of this. They will give the final ruling. They will not want to get involved. However, I believe if this was a Maraga court, Maraga was very activist. By activist, it means that they're not scared of upsetting, you know, existing order. You know, like, for example, like overturning what was decided by an electoral commission, by IEBC, overturning a presidential election.
Yes.
That's judicial activism. I strongly believe if this was Maraga's courts, this would have
been... He would have had a chance.
This would have had a chance.
But also, I think there's... Also adding to that one, I think there's also an issue of making it fair, making sure that the process itself
is fair.
When I say the process, it is whatever has been defined by the Constitution, whatever. If you're gonna talk about this, if I accuse Ali of stealing my chicken, I cannot go and say Ali that Ali insulted me.
Yes.
No. It has to be.
He may have insulted you while you're stealing the chicken.
That is fine, but it has to be about, because that is what. Because even if you notice when those guys were doing the readings and they were debating or whatever process was going on over there was not really addressing whatever
the allegations.
The allegations. We're not going to use charges, as we've been corrected.
Allegations.
But whatever had been put on the motion to start the impeachment process, because all that Gachagua addressed, he addressed it himself in the press briefing, and when he went in, and he even offered video, anecdotes, footage. Although Moshomba was talking about it was not the right way to go about it or whatever, but nothing really on the allegations that were whatever was on what the MPs appended their signature on was addressed even from their side, and that becomes the issue. So they wanna make sure that this process because you're going to set a precedent, meaning that the next time next person that comes in, they're going to make sure that the process that was followed, the process that was initiated, how it was carried, public participation, if it needs more than 7 days.
Yeah.
And then it has to be bipartisan, or whoever has to go ahead and about, because the Bomas one was run by ODM.
The Bomas one,
yes, because it was TJ Kajwang.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
it was. But all we've been hearing was the Bomas one. We hear specs of whatever was carried out in Baringo. We hear what was carried out in other parts or whatever.
So there's a quantifiability part
of it. That's another issue.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that will come out of this whole process, whether Rigiji is impeached or not, or whether it's delayed, is the rules and the jurisprudence. That's what we don't have.
Period. And
that's what we don't have at the moment, and that will enrich the process.
Yes.
And it might also, Moshe, I want you to think about this. It might tempt people to think about how to recall and how to impeach other people. But before we get to that part, because it might now give people a playbook of how to impeach a president. But before we get to that, Kenyan Diaspora has a very important question, and I know there was also other points that Julian Samboko brought up that I think we want you to finish for us.
Yes.
Kenyan Diaspora is asking, is the Senate the final adjudicator of guilt and termination of office? Yes. And then, and in the Senate, does it come down to a simple vote, or is there a judge who hears the facts? So it's a hearing. It's like a quasi-judicial. It becomes a quasi-judicial body.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, just like also the Supreme Court, it will be votes. And this one, it's still 2/3.
Yes.
So out of the 67 senators who are there, one for each county, and 20 nominated. Oh, those are too many, by the way.
Yes.
So there's 67. Out of those 67, they need 45. 2/3.
Yes.
To convict him. So he needs 23 to save him.
To save his Tanye.
Yeah. So
where is he getting the 23?
23. No, that's what I'm saying. We are just now speaking.
We're just talking about the numbers. We're not talking.
No. I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to think, where is he getting the 23?
We are talking the numbers. We're gonna analyze if he can get the 23 or not.